the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up on the agenda is the general public comment. First up is Pam Eames. We will have 3 minutes for our policy, okay?
Okay, good morning, everyone. I have a few questions. Last time I was at the meeting here, you guys were passing the bond issue of $750 million. I didn't know if you guys have passed that or not yet. I've been watching the tax plan through the federal government and how they want to cut the revenue, which means they're going to cut the expenses. So I'm concerned on if we're going to go forward with both of the train projects, which would be the Westlake and the South Shore, and what we're thinking we're going to get funding from the federal government. And if we don't get the funding from the federal government, are then projects still going forward? Because Mr. Nolan has said that if we don't get the funding, that they're done, and I believe the RDA board has said that also. So them are my concerns for today. Thank you.
Next up for public comment is Ken Davidson.
Good morning. I have a general comment first about the agenda and the approval of the agenda. This has been an issue going on for years, and I've never brought it up at a meeting, but I noticed it again today. Probably about 10 years ago, I was here, the State Senator Lonnie Randolph was here, and my recollection is that he stood up and made an impassioned plea for this board to help with the rebuilding of Klein Avenue, and he was solidly rejected unanimously, I believe, at that time. And when I went back later to look at the meeting minutes, it was a very watered-down, bland version of what he said. And so the same thing today. We have, some comments from last time, and they don't reflect either the comments that were made, in my opinion, the comments that were made, or the general tone of the comments. And I would ask this board that in the future, try to transcribe those comments accurately, because I don't believe that the comments are accurately reflected within the meeting minutes. And it's important, especially when you have a state senator come and discuss Klein Avenue, which is an issue of importance. It's probably the #1 thing that I hear from residents of Hammond, Gary, and East Chicago, who, by the way, pay most of the bills here, is why didn't we rebuild Klein Avenue? Well, now we have a state senator coming to you, and in the comments it was something like, Senator Lonnie Randolph addressed the Klein Avenue project. And it was a very, as I recall, impassioned speech. You meet in a remote location with no video, audio, or anything else for the residents to hear, and so this is all they're ever going to get. All they're ever going to get is this 1 line or 2 lines that is published on the internet. They don't get to hear people speak or see people speak or the presentations or anything else. So all they're going to get is whatever you approve here. So please, board members, be mindful of that this should accurately reflect what people said and possibly even, where possible, the tone of what people said. Because it's important for posterity to record what happened here accurately. Thank you.
Next up is Julie O'Connor.
Hi, I'm Julie O'Connor. I'm a resident of Munster, and I have a question on behalf of the concerned families of the Westlake Corridor project. When the Secretary of Transportation made a visit to the region, the meeting in South Bend, I think that was back in August, after that the reports that we heard from NICD were that they were very confident of getting specific project ratings for the 2 projects that have now been submitted. Reportedly, the FTA said that it was the best presentation they ever saw. But then I read in the Times recently that, Mr. Hanna, you made a trip to Washington to talk about these same projects. So I'm wondering if something in those expectations changed between that meeting with the Secretary of Transportation and your visit to Washington. What necessitated that visit? I'm hoping that you can address that. Thank you.
Sure, I appreciate the comments, and the first comments that were made capture some of what the atmosphere is. And so when you put an application in for any project on this scale, and we've done the 2 rating packages for both Westlake and double tracking, you go through a competitive process at the federal level. So part of the intent of the trip was to inform the national representatives and audience at the administrative level of the Trump administration as to the nature of this project and its distinction among projects that they'll be considering, given the fact that it's 100% funded locally and state-wise. And then it has a huge economic development component that by statute has been created with this, which makes it more of a jobs program and a broader impact area than just merely a train project that they may see in other applications. So we want to maintain the distinction from that perspective, the financial aspect of it as the other. When the comments were made in the beginning, and those are good comments, there's also a national political discussion about funding, and there's always a presentation of the President's budget versus where it originates in the House of Representatives. Those are things that we don't control, that we lean pretty heavily on our Indiana delegation in Washington to fight those battles on our behalf. And we're hopeful that those things continue to go forward. Historically, so far in this administration, they've had the same sort of struggles with each budget presentation, and yet projects like ours have been continually funded through the Department of Transportation and the FTA. So we're trying not to get too distracted with the conversation that happens at that level, but to get across at a policy level that our project is in fact a model for national replication, and that it incorporates multiple components to include the job creation factor and dovetails very well with where the administration would like to see public transportation and infrastructure projects go in the future.
We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Are there any items that the board members would like to remove from the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Action items on recommendations from the Fiscal Task Force. First is a funding application from NERC for the Travel Demand Survey. Bill, you want to present that?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to defer to our Chief Operating Officer, Sherry Brewer, for just a very brief summary of what that is and how it pertains to the Westlake and double tracking project.
Sure, Mr. Hannah. So this would be the approval of an RDA grant in the amount of $46,993.30 to NERC, and it'd be for a 2-year study to complete NERC's household travel demand survey. And what this does is it ensures a fair and transparent prioritization and selection process for the region's transportation funding priorities. And completing the survey helps NERC in making informed decisions on the transportation project, with NERC being the administrator of transportation dollars. So the recommendation from the Fiscal Task Force is to approve the funding for the travel demand survey for a 2-year period, 2017-2018, again in the amount of $46,993.30.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 on the action item list is the revolving loan fund for the site of 4900 Klein Avenue in East Chicago. Sherry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that's correct. The site at 4900 Klein Avenue in East Chicago. This would be the second loan we would be asking the RDA board for permission to draw from the revolving loan fund. It's in the amount of $672,000 for the environmental cleanup property, again at 4900 Klein Avenue. It's the old Inland Steel building. I'll just go through the terms quickly. The loan repayment would be within 5 years by way of gaming dollars. The project description itself is the abatement of asbestos-containing materials from the 10 property buildings at the site location. That should be completed in the spring of 2018, and this will allow for increased tax base for the city of East Chicago and rejuvenation of the parcels of the land that have been vacant for over 24 years. And so the recommendation from the Fiscal Task Force is to approve the environmental remediation loan to the city of East Chicago at 4900 Klein Avenue in the amount of $672,000 based on the terms just described.
Motion to approve.
Been a
Second.
motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to offer just a brief comment. I think we don't say it enough, but I know I just want to point out for the board that Jill is very involved in the day-to-day activity of this type of things, and it's a lot of dotting I's and crossing T's, and she really does a great job. Sometimes I don't want it's not the big dollar item, but it still requires a lot of attention. I just want the board to know, and the staff to know that I've seen her the level of detail. So that needs to be pointed
Thank you for your very positive comments about Joe. So is there a motion and a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the project status review. Mr. Hannon, is there any update for surface transportation and development?
None at this time, Mr. Chairman, that we already have covered with the federal process. Thank you.
Any report on the Gary-Chicago Airport?
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Joyner, shoreline redevelopment?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Sherry Ziller, RDA operations?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to give a quick update to the board on the convention center market validation and feasibility study. So we reported last board meeting that the study process has begun with the firm CSL. So we do have some stakeholder interviews scheduled and also windshield tours scheduled for next week. We invited over 100 stakeholders to be interviewed, and those consist of a lot of elected officials, mayors, county councils, the commissioners, city and town councils, other level of city government, the Chamber of Commerce, management of local event facilities, our academic institutions, event planners, and other industry representatives. And Randy Palmetier has been very helpful in talking to the council and the commissioners and getting them up to date on the process and making sure that they make time to come to the interview. So I would like to thank Randy for all of his efforts there. And then we also have our what we call the windshield tour that's scheduled for mid next week, and we're going to go to the key destination areas in Lake County, area retail, restaurant, entertainment hubs, noteworthy attractions, any significant convention, conference, event facilities, our key hotels that we have here, and logical sites rather for potential site locations for a convention center. So that pretty much concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for Sherry?
Thank you.
We'll move on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business coming before the board? Now we'll move on to new business. Any new business to come before the board? In your packet is the board planning calendar and 2018 future meeting dates. And we'll move on to general public comment. Mr. Davidson.
Wow, that was fast. All right, so with regard to, I'm so happy that the stakeholders are being engaged with regard to the new tax that we're going to get, this 3% food and beverage tax to build a convention center that the public overwhelmingly doesn't want, along with the South Shore train that the public overwhelmingly doesn't want. You know, we had a referendum in two municipalities, a town and a city. No, two cities, I guess, within Lake County yesterday. And the number one question that I saw people ask is, why isn't casino revenue helping to support our schools? Why isn't casino revenue helping to support our schools? And the reason is because of everything that's going on here. We're spending $672,000, and we all know that environmental remediation is of crucial importance in Lake County, Indiana. But didn't I hear that that was a former inland steel site? Shouldn't the person or the entity that polluted it be paying to clean it up? Isn't that the way federal law works? I mean, maybe I just don't understand how these things work. But, you know, when you pollute a property, they can come back after you to force you to clean it up. The taxpayer shouldn't be on the hook for $672,000. We also shouldn't be on the hook for taking stakeholders. The stakeholders, in my opinion, are the people who are going to pay the 3%, by the way, just for your knowledge. But we shouldn't be taking them out to dinner all over the Northwest Indiana to decide where a Convention and Visitors Bureau should go. You know, I mean, we should, that just makes no sense. We're going to go out to dinner at all these different places and go, oh, this will be a nice location. I don't understand it, you know? Our schools are failing. The city of Gary had a state takeover. They're $120 million in debt. And the casino money is flowing out the doors here to consultants like it's water. I mean, we need that money within our cities. That's almost $130, $140 million that has flowed in and out of this room right here in casino money. Yeah. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.